dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning, I'm Taylor Upchurch. Today is Thursday, April 25th. Let's check in with Brandon Robinson for another look at your forecast this morning. Brandon, how does it look out there today?
So far, so good for a lot of areas. Already seen a little bit of rain across parts of the area this morning, but as we take a look at the cameras across the region, starting at the Mountain Parkway, still dry up that way this morning. Not much traffic just yet. We go back to Stonecrest. The clouds are going to be the main story of today, and mostly cloudy skies, unfortunately, will greet us. We will see peaks of sunshine at times, possibly, but don't get your hopes up for a lot of that. Temperatures are still going to be fairly decent, though. Last 6 hours on the satellite and radar, just a few showers rolling around the region, and you can see them there going through parts of Owsley County into parts of the northern edge of Perry County now, going into Breathitt County as well, and that's about the only game in town at the moment. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s as you head out the door this morning, so a very mild start to the day. You probably won't need a jacket early today, and you won't need one all day long, but you will need the rain gear and the umbrella, so keep that handy. Temperatures climb into the upper 70s by later today. I'll have the rest of the forecast on the way here in just a few minutes. Taylor?
All right, Brandon, thank you. President Trump is testing the ability of Congress to conduct oversight on a president. He's fighting multiple efforts by House Democrats to interview current and former administration officials, see his tax returns, and obtain financial documents. CBS's Natalie Brand is in Washington with details.
Well, the subpoena is ridiculous.
President Trump is stonewalling Democratic efforts to investigate him.
Look, these aren't like impartial people.
He's vowing to defy subpoenas issued by House Democrats.
I say it's enough. Get back to infrastructure, get back to cutting taxes, get back to lowering drug prices.
The White House is trying to block at least 3 top officials from cooperating with lawmakers on issues including security clearances, the 2020 census, and the Mueller report.
After 2 years, we'd be finished with it.
The Judiciary Committee subpoenaed former White House counsel Don McGahn, who was cited more than 150 times by special counsel Robert Mueller.
Executive privilege on the table. That's his right.
In the wake of the Mueller report, Democrats are divided over impeachment. Some say they should focus right now on their oversight duties.
The role of dictator.
House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings accuses the president of a, quote, massive, unprecedented, and growing pattern of obstruction.
It's impossible to make the president accountable if we cannot have access to information.
The president has also sued Cummings to keep his financial records a secret. And Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Deutsche Bank has begun the process of giving New York's Attorney General financial records of President Trump and his business. A person familiar with the production says it's in response to a subpoena for documents related to loans to the president and the business. New York's top legal officer opened a civil investigation after former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen testified to Congress that Trump had inflated his assets. The banking giant has been one of the few large banks willing to lend to the Trump organization in recent years. Meanwhile, potentially the last big-name runner has officially entered the race for the Democratic presidential nomination. Former Vice President Joe Biden launched his campaign early this morning ahead of a fundraiser in Philadelphia. The latest polling shows him leading the large field of 2020 Democratic hopefuls with 27%, 7% ahead of Senator Bernie Sanders. And Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke says he's open to allowing some prisoners to vote, but he says he may draw the line at violent offenders.
I would think especially for non-violent offenders that we rethink removing the right to vote and allow everyone or as many as possible to participate in our democracy. For violent criminals, it's much harder for me to reach that conclusion.
Prisoners' voting rights have been a debate among Democratic White House hopefuls. Senator Bernie Sanders wants to allow all prisoners to vote. Former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro is open to allowing only nonviolent offenders, but South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg is against felons voting in prison. A decorated Army colonel in Virginia died from injuries he received in an accident last week. On April 18th, Colonel Gregory Townsend stopped to help a stranded motorist on a Sussex County highway. Townsend was changing the motorist's flat tire when the car fell on him. A helicopter took Townsend to a local hospital for treatment until his death on Monday. And the Boy Scouts of America believes more than 7,800 former leaders sexually abused children over a 72-year period. That's according to testimony made public by an attorney on Tuesday. The lawyer says the numbers come from a list of individuals the BSA removed and banned from its organization over accusations of policy violations. The jaw-dropping figure means there are about 2,800 more leaders suspected of abuse than previously known to the public. And a faith-based group in Martin County hopes to breathe life back into an old abandoned business. The Inez Motel and Restaurant does not have a good reputation. WYMT's Marianne Fletcher talked to members about why it's the perfect symbol for recovery.
A rough past does not mean rocky future.
We're pumped about it.
Built in 1977, the Inez Motel and Restaurant does not have a clean reputation.
We don't have a homeless shelter in this area, so it ended up being a place for transient housing.
Many in Martin County can relate.
There's not a person in this area who hasn't had a family member or friend who's been affected by the drug crisis in our area.
Stephen Goebel is working with Pastor Casey Carver and 5 other board members to turn this building into God's Connection, a rehabilitation center.
Through the cross, is where anyone can find absolute healing.
Healing the soul without medication.
No one stands a chance being able to get clean or to be able to be fully recovered unless they're pointing towards the cross.
And running on donations.
Right now we're hoping that people would just, in all honesty, give out of the abundance of their heart.
Carver says this center will fill a much-needed void for the community.
Just hoping that they see that there is a need, of which I believe most of Kentucky and even within the country can see right now, that there is a need for drug rehabilitation.
While providing proof.
It really gives you hope. It gives you a positive feeling.
It is never too late to turn your life around. In Martin County, Marianne Fletcher, WYMT Mountain News.
God's Connection will be a 30-day program. Membership is $300. If you would like to donate, we have information on how to do so on our website, WYMT.com. And a generic medication used to reverse the effects of an overdose in the form of nasal spray is newly approved by the FDA. Pharmacists say naloxone hydrochloride is easily accessible without a prescription and even easier to use at home. With brief instructions, anyone can save a life. Jerry Lynn Milwee says there are 4 simple steps. Peel the tab, place a finger on either side of the nozzle, and spray into one's nose. If there's no response, repeat in the second nostril. Then immediately call 911, as the effects only last 30 to 90 minutes.
The community can be an added resource to the first responders once this is generically available, and like how our pharmacy is doing, making it more readily accessible to the community. So the more people that can help save a life can help everyone.
Pharmacists say both adults and children may receive the medication. The FDA's goal is to clear the pathway for patients and families to purchase a generic naloxone product over the counter. 10 ARH pharmacies accept walk-in requests for the nasal spray. And if you've ever driven through an active construction zone near on a road, you now know how chaotic it can be, but our driving can make things even worse. A bill focusing on protecting those crews that work along the roads will soon go into effect. WYMT's Connor James talked with the legislator behind the bill and why this is needed.
As it gets warmer, you'll see more and more construction. But the work to upgrade and fix our roads is a dangerous one.
Actually, in the past few years, highway worker accidents have actually been on the rise.
Representative Derek Lewis successfully pushed his bill, House Bill 244, through the legislature. And in June of this year, it will go into effect.
So right now in Kentucky, the only double fines that we have are for speeding. All the states around us have done that for all moving traffic violations, and that just updates the Kentucky law to reflect that and then give our highway workers more protections.
What the bill does is double the fine for all traffic violations in construction zones that could put a road worker's life at risk. not changing lanes correctly or going through a stop sign, for example. The funds will go to the Highway Workers Safety Fund.
Providing our law enforcement with the tools they need and the resources they need to patrol our work zone safely is the main purpose of the bill.
Essentially a fund that pays law enforcement to monitor those active and busy sites in the hopes,
we want these people coming back home every night.
It'll be safer for those crews that consistently work on them. Connor James, WYMT Mountain News.
The bill will go into effect on June 27th. And now let's toss over to Brandon Robinson for another look at your weather.
Forecast this morning starting off a bit soggy for some. We've watched a couple of showers move through Pulaski County all the way up into parts of Owsley County now, into parts of Lee County, and all the way down toward Buckhorn. If you're over at Buckhorn Lake, probably getting a pretty little shower this morning in northern Perry County. That's heading over into Breathitt County this morning. Looking at temperatures, we are in the 60s and 50s across the area. Looks like 55 now our coolest temperature there in Harlan, and it looks like 63, I believe, is our warmest temperature over in Logan. Almanac for today, 78 your forecast high, 71 your average high, 89 is the record set back on this day in 2009. If you're heading out soon, make sure you take the rain gear. You will need it later today as temperatures and rain chances both go up as we head deeper into the afternoon, evening, and overnight hours. Taylor?
Thank you for joining us on Mountain News this morning. Still to come, we hear from the wife of a U.S. service member who was killed in the deadliest attack where 6 others were killed.